This is a financial office in California, and that is a modern tribute to the Tree of Life. Engineers are now building metastructures based on Mughal tomb patterns. AI is copying ancient artisans, and China's building the Silk Road again, but with satellites. When genius and history collide, you get today's list. But before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more with the notification bell. Let's get into it. I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 modern wonders with ancient echoes. 25. Sumerian design meets California payroll. The West Sacramento ziggurat was designed by architect Edwin Cotto and was originally supposed to jut out toward the river as an upside-down pyramid. The client wanted something more grounded, though, so he flipped it, literally, into this stable, symmetrical, stepped form. Now spread across more than 7 acres beside the Tower Bridge, it holds over 373,000 square feet of usable space. Thanks to its pre-stressed concrete piles, steel frame, and 4-ton limestone slabs, it's basically fortified like a fortress and can take a 6.9 magnitude quake without flinching. At night, under state lease since 2001, its exterior lighting transforms the silhouette into an illuminated pyramid rising out of the river. Something the Sumerian priests probably would have been very jealous of. 24. From 17th century ornament to 21st century vibration control. The walls of the Itimat Udala tomb in Agra are carved with interlocking lattices that were designed in the 1600s. Recently, a team of engineers took those designs and fed them into an AI-based inverse model. It's a system that lets you start with a goal, like blocking vibration, and then calculates the shape that'll do it best. Once the models were trained, the engineers 3D printed 9 metastructure panels. Each one was built using modern materials, even though the patterns themselves came straight from the tomb's geometry. What came out wasn't just beautiful, it was effective. During the stress tests, some of the patterns performed better than expected, creating stable band gaps that block motion in very precise ways. The results now sit at the edge of architecture and even aerospace, teaching us new ways to design for control, motion, and stability. 23. A Greek temple in Tennessee. Tennessee might be famous for country music, Elvis, and whiskey, but it's got a full-scale Greek temple that doesn't get nearly enough attention. If you're not from the US, there's a good chance you've never even heard of it. Built in 1897 as the centerpiece of Tennessee's Centennial Exposition, Nashville's Parthenon started out as a temporary plaster replica of the ancient original. Locals loved it so much, they refused to let it go. So in the 20s, the whole thing was rebuilt from scratch, this time in concrete, brick, and steel, and completed in 1931. The accuracy even goes down to the smallest details. There's even a 42-foot tall Athena recreated in the 80s, and a set of casts of the Parthenon marbles filling the halls. Honestly, it's gorgeous. I've been there. My dad's side of the family is from Nashville. 22. Pink sandstone meets white marble. Just look at this. Isn't it gorgeous? The world's largest Hindu temple, located on the banks of the Yamuna River in New Delhi, was created without a single sheet of steel. In fact, over 11,000 artisans and 8,000 volunteers worked together to carve and assemble the temple in just 5 years. Completed in 2005, the construction followed ancient Vedic design principles. It rises 141 feet up into the air, stretches more than 350 feet long, and is built entirely from Rajasthani pink sandstone and Italian Carrara marble. Look closer, and you'll see 234 pillars, 9 domes, 20,000 statues, and hundreds of elephants carved into the stone. Every little detail was created by hand, carrying the weight of centuries-old craftsmanship into the 21st century. 21. A glass pyramid for peace. Right in the middle of Astana, Kazakhstan, is a glass and granite pyramid you'll find rising out of the grasslands. It's called the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation, and it opened in 2006 as a place for global religious and cultural dialogue. British architect Norman Foster designed it, and its construction only took 2 years. The whole thing sits on a man-made mound, and the base stretches 62 meters in every direction, the same at its height. That symmetry is on purpose, and was meant to reflect balance and unity. Inside, there's a space for just about everything. a 1,300-seat opera house, a museum, a library, even individual rooms for different religions to hold discussions or ceremonies. And at the very top, a glowing stained glass lantern that filters sunlight through panels that were designed by the artist Brian Clark. 20. The Revival of Alexandria. The modern Library of Alexandria sits right beside the harbor in Egypt. It was inaugurated in 2002 with UNESCO's backing and a clear mission: to rekindle the spirit of that long-lost ancient center of learning. This building is massive. The main reading room rises 32 meters, about 105 feet high, stretches 160 meters, over 525 feet across, and steps down through 11 cascading levels, making it one of the largest continuous reading spaces in the world. It can hold up to 8 million books, and its outer wall consists of almost 65,000 square feet of gray granite, hand-carved with characters from around 120 writing systems. You'll find alphabets, music notation, braille, and even barcodes. Inside, the complex includes multiple museums, from antiquities and manuscripts to the history of science. There's also a planetarium, a science center, research institutes, galleries, conference halls, and a full restoration lab. 19. Measured in Cubits, built in 2016. The Ark Encounter is a full-size Noah's Ark replica in Kentucky. Completed in 2016, it follows the Bible specs down to the inch: 510 feet long, 155 meters, 85 feet wide, and 51 feet tall. If you're more of a visual person, think of it this way: that is nearly 1.5 football fields long. They even calculate its interior volume at around 1.88 million cubic feet, which is enough space to hold nearly 450 semi-truck trailers. It took more than 3.3 million board feet of wood, mostly Engelmann spruce and pine, with some logs stretching up to 50 feet to bring it to life, and comes with 3 full decks padded with exhibits: a look at Noah's storage areas, a snapshot of pre-flood life, and imagined living quarters for Noah and his family. The Ark has been a tourism magnet. It had over 1 million visitors in its first year alone, and on busy weekends, it can see 7,000 people in a single day. Though before you go, you should look into it first. Just put that out there. 18. A modern tower with a 1,000-year-old backstory. According to an old Turkic myth, there's a tree so tall it links the sky to the ground, and once a year, a bird called the samruk lays a golden egg in its branches. Today, that image lives on, but it's 344 feet tall and made from steel and glass. The Bayterik Tower in Kazakhstan was commissioned by President Nazarbayev in the early 2000s as a symbol of rebirth. But beyond the symbolism, it's become a local landmark. People get married here, kids ride the elevators up through the spine, and from the top you can actually see the capital spreading outward, almost like it's growing like a tree of its own. 17. NASA's Apollo program. When Kennedy stood up in 1961 and said we were going to the moon before 1970, it wasn't a suggestion. NASA answered with Apollo, a name borrowed from the Greek god of the sun, light, and knowledge. Abe Silverstein, NASA's director of spaceflight, chose Apollo partly because the myth of the sun god brought ambition and clarity to the mission. The symbolism stuck. Apollo achieved 6 crewed lunar landings between 1969 and 1972. The most famous one, of course, was when Apollo 11 delivered Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the lunar surface. Apollo is still the only mission sequence to take humans beyond the Earth's orbit. It allowed 12 astronauts to walk on the moon, brought back almost 842 pounds of lunar samples, and began the era of planetary science we still study today. 16. The goddess watching over New York's harbor. Lady Liberty might be one of the most photographed statues in the world, but there aren't a lot of people who know that she's modeled after an ancient Roman goddess. Sculptor Frederic Auguste Bartholdi based the figure on Libertas, the Roman symbol of freedom, who was often shown holding out a staff or a torch. The statue was gifted by France to the United States in 1886 and arrived in pieces, packed into over 200 crates. It took workers 4 months to assemble her on what's now Liberty Island, with her right arm and torch, actually completed years earlier and displayed on their own at world fairs and fundraisers. American architect Richard Morris Hunt designed her pedestal. If you climb the 354 steps to the top, you can still peek out from inside the crown. 15. the Global Pantry in Norway. The Ark replica in Kentucky isn't the only one out there. Norway has one too, but theirs is buried in a mountain made of reinforced concrete and packed with cabbage seeds. It's called the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, and it opened in 2008 on the island of Spitsbergen, about 800 miles from the North Pole. The whole thing is carved into Arctic rock and kept at freezing temperatures to act as the world's backup drive for food. Should disaster strike, whether it's war, famine, or something else, the vault holds over 1 million seed samples from nearly every country on Earth. It even has backup generators and is built far above sea level, just in case the ice ever melts. So, at least we have that bit covered. 14. Colombo's blooming icon. Shaped like a giant lotus bud rising out of a concrete stem, the Nelamkaluna, or Lotus Tower in Colombo, Sri Lanka, is the tallest self-supported skyscraper in South Asia. The lotus is one of the oldest spiritual symbols in the region, tied to purity, rebirth, and the ability to rise through difficulties and blossom in the sun, so it's actually quite fitting for a city that's been rebuilt more than once. The tower opened in 2019 and now anchors the skyline at 350 meters, or 1,150 feet tall. That's about the height of a 100-story building. Trust me, you can't miss it. It serves as a media tower, has an observation deck, gaming floor, promenade, admin floors, and even hosts exhibitions, conferences, and weddings. No word on bar mitzvahs. 13. Australia's Lazarus Project. I guess the name says it all, right? The Lazarus Project was launched in 2013 with the goal of resurrecting the gastric brooding frog, extinct since the early 80s. Now, before you say, why bother? The gastric brooding frog was no ordinary amphibian. It incubated its young in its stomach. The mother swallowed eggs, shut down her stomach acid, and later gave birth through her mouth. When the species disappeared, scientists at the University of Newcastle and UNSW kept tissue samples preserved. Decades later, they used a cloning method called somatic cell nuclear transfer, slipping the nuclei from those cells into fresh eggs from a related frog, and to their surprise, some of the eggs turned into living embryos that carried the extinct frog's DNA. Despite not making headlines every week, Australian scientists are still working on the project, but haven't succeeded in bringing back a living frog just yet. Speaking of frogs, I clearly have one in my throat, and I'm so sorry for this entire video. I'm working on it. Oh my god. Please bear with me. 12. Ancient Egypt meets all-you-can-eat buffets. Vegas doesn't do subtle, and the Luxor is proof of that. The 30-story black glass pyramid has been sitting on the Strip since 1993, complete with a replica Sphinx guarding its doors. Inside, it's part casino, part resort, and part theme park. I don't have three hands. There are over 4,000 rooms, 4 massive pools, a shopping arcade, a spa, and of course, endless rows of slot machines. It even has ballrooms named after the Nile and the Lotus, because why stop at a pyramid when you can recreate the whole Nile Valley in miniature? The real icon, however, is the sky beam that shoots straight out of the pyramid's tip. The light burns with the intensity of 42.3 billion candela, making one of the brightest beams on Earth. It's so bright that pilots can spot it from hundreds of miles away. Story time. I actually went there. I was staying next door at the Excalibur when I was a kid, probably like 15. It also has inclinators. There are elevators that go up the pyramid. It's really cool. I was trying to find them, so I was wandering around. Didn't find them. Accidentally ended up in a maintenance elevator and ended up down in like the pipes and everything. Like, I shouldn't be here. So, that's all. 11. Bali's Colossus. The Garuda Wisnu Kinkana monument was finally opened in 2018 after almost 30 years of delays, redesigns, and money troubles. It shows the Hindu god Vishnu riding on the back of Garuda, the eagle-like creature from ancient myth. In the stories, Garuda goes searching for the elixir of life to free his mother, and agrees to carry Vishnu as part of the bargain. The statue is created in solid brass and copper and stands almost 400 feet tall. That makes it taller than the Statue of Liberty, and at nearly 3,000 tons, one of the heaviest statues on Earth. It cost close to $100 million to complete and is the tallest statue of a Hindu deity anywhere in the world today. 10. the most Arctic church on Earth. If you're expecting stained glass and stone arches, well, you're in the wrong hemisphere. St. Jude's Cathedral in Iqaluit doesn't look like any other church you've seen before. It's shaped like an igloo, white and round, with curved walls and a small spire rising from the top like a chimney. It's a genuine fusion of belief and place, from the curved snow shelter shape to the soapstone carvings and the Arctic animal art inside. There's even stained glass, but not the kind you'd see in Rome. These windows come with wolves and caribou. And while it looks modest from a distance, it's one of the most distinct and sacred buildings on the continent. 9. A library that looks like a wave and works like a city. From a distance, it looks like a wave that was frozen mid-crest, curling over a sheet of glass and light. Step closer, and you're walking into something much bigger than a library. Oddi in Helsinki was built across from the Finnish parliament to send a message. Knowledge deserves the same space as politics. Yes, they have books, about 100,000 of them, but they also have a cinema, a makerspace, music studios, game rooms, a top floor called Book Heaven, and everything was crowdsourced. More than 3,000 citizens helped design it, vote on features, and even decide how to spend parts of the budget. In Finland, over 50% of people still go to libraries every month, and Oddi gets more than 8,000 visitors every day, which just goes to show that if you give people a useful space, they'll show up for it. 8. The telescope that redefined the galaxy. Before Gaia, we didn't really know what our own galaxy looked like. Not in 3D, not in motion, and definitely not with the kind of detail Gaia delivered. Gaia, named after the primordial Greek goddess, was launched by the European Space Agency in 2013 to track the movement, brightness, and position of almost 2 billion stars. Over the next 11 years, it built the most detailed map of the Milky Way we've ever had. A star-by-star layout of our corner of the universe. When ESA retired the telescope in March 2025 and gave it a nudge into a solar orbit, the science was just getting started. We are now using the data to figure out everything from the birth of stars to the outer edges of the Milky Way. 7. Temples and terminals. The Tren Maya cuts a wide loop through southern Mexico, running right past Maya centers like Palenque, Calakmul, and Chichen Itza. Its name, Tzimicac, or Fire Horse, comes from the Yucatec Maya language. The first passenger trains rolled out just before 2023 ended, and within its first full year, nearly 800,000 people had already taken the ride. By mid-2025, that number had surpassed 1 million. Construction kept moving during that time, and by the close of 2024, more than 1,500 kilometers of track were finished, with 20 stations and 14 stops stretched across 5 states. Some trains even feature Maya glyphs designed by local artists. The train's brand new, but it travels right by pyramids, hidden temples, and small towns where people still converse in the languages of their ancestors. 6. The Rhodes Reconstruction Project. The Colossus of Rhodes was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a 105-foot bronze figure of Helios built to mark the island's freedom after a siege. It took 12 years to raise, but just 55 to lose. In 226 BCE, a powerful earthquake brought it down, and when the Oracle of Delphi warned against rebuilding, the ruins stayed where they fell for generations, until Arab raiders finally carted off the bronze in 654. But our fascination never really faded. In recent decades, at least 3 major proposals tried to bring it back. There was one around the Athens 2004 Olympics, another one in 2008, and in 2015, a team dreamed up a $285 million tower that would have even included a museum, restaurant, library, and also solar panels to tip the hat to Helios. As of now, though, every one of those grand ideas has stayed firmly on paper. 5. A goddess and her rabbit. In January 2019, a Chinese spacecraft did something no mission had ever managed before. It landed on the far side of the moon. The lander was named Chang'e after the mythical Chinese goddess who lives on the lunar surface, and the companion rover, Yutu 2, carried the name of her legendary Jade Rabbit. The pair touched down inside the Von Karman crater, in a part of the South Pole, Aitken Basin, an area scientists had long wanted to explore because of its unique geology. From the moment the rover rolled out, it was meant to last just a few months. Instead, it kept going and going and going until it became the longest running rover ever built. In September 2024, it was still going strong. Unfortunately, by March 2025, it became immobile, and we've received nothing from it since. 4. The Pharos Project. The Lighthouse of Alexandria stood against storms, waves, and time itself for over 1,600 years, before earthquakes finally dragged it into the sea. Its blocks were scattered across the harbor, where some were later pulled into the Cape Bay Fort, and others got buried in silt. It's been down there for centuries, but in the past few years, teams of divers and archaeologists have started hauling those stones back into the daylight. In the last year alone, 22 massive blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons, have been recovered. Everything from doorway lintels to foundation slabs and even the uprights of a ceremonial gateway. Every block gets scanned and cataloged as part of the Pharos Project, which is a collaboration between CNRS, Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, and Dassault Systems. They hope to create a 3D digital twin that historians can test, tweak, and explore. 3. Apollo's sister takes the stage. If Apollo got humans to the moon for the first time, Artemis, his twin sister and goddess of the moon, is meant to take us back. The program was officially announced in 2019, picking up where Apollo left off, but with bigger ambitions. Its first major test came in November 2022 when Artemis 1 sent an uncrewed Orion spacecraft on a full journey around the moon and safely home. That mission proved the rocket and capsule could handle deep space. Now, Artemis 2 is lined up to carry astronauts on the same route, giving NASA its first crewed lunar flyby in more than 50 years. After that comes Artemis 3, which has the milestone goal of putting people back on the lunar surface, including the first woman and the first person of color. 2. Every single public square. Think Times Square in New York, Trafalgar Square in London, or Plaza Mayor in Madrid. They all might look completely different from one another, but every one of them traces its DNA back to the same place: the agoras of ancient Greece and the forums of Rome. The Forum Romanum, for example, included basilicas, temples, law courts, and market stalls all in one place. Those early squares were where daily life happened. People shopped, they argued politics, held trials, celebrated festivals, and even bumped into their neighbors. The concept spread with the ancient empires, and it never disappeared. Whether you're standing in Red Square, Tiananmen Square, or your local small-town plaza, you're standing in a direct descendant of those ancient designs. 1. The New Silk Road. You've probably heard of the Silk Road, the ancient one that carried silk, spices, and ideas from China to Rome 2,000 years ago. Well, in 2013, China decided to bring it back, only this time with highways, rail, and shipping lanes. President Xi Jinping launched what's now called the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, during a speech in Kazakhstan, and he even name-dropped Zheng Qian, the Han Dynasty envoy who first opened those routes. It's huge. The network crosses more than 150 countries, covering almost 70% of the world's population and a third of our global GDP. China is also spending a lot, with estimates ranging from hundreds of billions to $8 trillion in loans and projects. They're doing oil pipelines to Russia, railways across Central Asia, new highways in Africa, and deep water ports everywhere from Greece to Pakistan. Not everyone's thrilled about all the development, though. Western governments have warned about debt risks, but countries like Pakistan and Kenya see it as a chance to modernize at a much faster pace. No matter how we look at it, China has revived the Silk Road in name and spirit, except now the caravans are container ships and bullet trains. And that's a wrap. But actually, here's a quick trivia question before we truly wrap it up. Lady Liberty's design was based on an ancient Roman goddess, but which one? A. Fortuna, B. Venus, C. Libertas, or D. Vesta? Put your answers in the comments below. And you know what? While you're there, let me know which of these places you'd actually want to visit in person. Or have you already? And if you do want to keep going down the rabbit hole, our related video, 25 times scientists created astonishing new states of matter, is waiting for you. Forget the basic 4 you learned in class. There's matter that could rewrite physics itself. including forms that break the rules of time, space, and maybe even reality. The link to that video will be up in just a second. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell. I'll catch you again next time. Peace.